All right, welcome to Anglo Nation South Asia on 2222. Thank you to AG Grid for being our sponsors, and thank you for all of y'all to take your time out today to be with us, to learn with us, to have fun with us. And with that, as more people walk in, hey everyone. Why don't you guys get started? Rob, Jen, Akshay, I'm not sure how you're gonna do it since there's three of you, but take it away.
Hi, thank you for having us, and thank you to AG Grid for making this possible. This presentation is between three of us. So we got Akshay, and we got Jayant, and myself, Robert, and we are going to present the way of Angular CLI, why of why of Angular CLI and workspaces and monorepos. We're going to mix a couple of more things in there, but that's the gist of it. Let me share my screen so we will get started. Can everybody see?
Yeah, we can see.
All right, the way of Angular, the why of Angular CLI, workspaces and monorepos by Akshay, Jajan, and Robert. So I'm going to start with the introduction and importance of Angular CLI. Why do we use it? So Angular CLI came into the scene in version 2. Prior to that, we didn't have the schematics to accelerate development. So this was introducing Angular version 2 and beyond. So with every iteration of Angular, every new version, we get a new CLI version of it as well. So whenever you do ng version, it will give you the Angular version that you're currently using. Um, so why of Angular CLI? Why do we use it? So basically because it's a boilerplate. So basically it avoids manually installing dependencies required to build Angular apps. What do we mean by that? Is we mean that Angular CLI is using Webpack in the back end behind the scenes, but it's hidden from the developer. So everything is, all these dependencies that need to get installed, and all the other libraries that we use, they're stored in the package uh, JSON, and CLI builds that package whenever we do ng new. So Angular CLI is considered best practice because it creates a project for the structure for us automatically. Uh, so it gives us a guide on how to create a correct project structure. It has a file name convention, which also dictates. So whenever you're going to create, let's say, a component, it's going to be the name that you're giving the component, that component, that TS, and the company files like the HTML, the spec file for testing, and the CSS file for the CSS. Um, a word of warning: we should limit our file size in each folder to 7, because as many files as we're capable of, I guess, digesting or understanding to manipulate and work with. And also, I gave you a little file structure guide here for Angular CLI that you can use. So as you heard, it's better to use Angular CLI to create to create our applications than do it manually, because it's a best practice. It gives you a boilerplate. Basically, it creates the application for you and for you to start developing, and you don't have to deal with all this uh, you know setting up a webpack, doing all the other installation of all the dependencies manually, and all the such like that. So Angular CLI always gets confused with Angular. So people are like, oh, so is Angular CLI Angular? No, Angular CLI is not Angular. Angular CLI is a schematic where you can a command line where you can type and generate different assets for your application, and you can generate the application itself, so a skeleton of the application, so you could start using it. Um, I'm gonna hand it over to Jayant for now, so that he can continue.
Yeah, so that was a good explanation of Angular CLI, everyone. But we all often tend to use tag bits for our small projects with Angular, maybe an MVP or something like that. But for that, we might want to use Angular CLI into stack bits as well. But there are not many ways to find it, and not you cannot easily use of it. And even we don't know how to use it from scratch. But we have a little tip for you, and there's a link that I also put it to the chat. You can just use this repository and you can fork it, and then you can continue your work. So you'll have Angular CLI as well when you try to use it. Rob, can you switch to the next slide? Yeah. So this was about Angular CLI majorly, but the major topic that we want to discuss today is Angular CLI workspaces. So when we talk about Angular CLI, Rob was able to give us a brief explanation like how Angular CLI works and what it gives us. But what is an Angular CLI workspace? So when we talk about Angular CLI workspace, it is basically allows you to organize your whole web application into smaller and multiple projects. So when we create an Angular application using the Angular CLI, like the command using ng new, then we create a single application. We don't have multiple applications into that. But what if we want to have multiple applications into the same, same repository? All right. So then we tend to go on to dimensions of using Annex or Monorepo. But the same thing can be achieved by using Angular CLI Workspace as well. So Angular CLI Workspace is a feature that allows you to have multiple applications into the same repository and to maintain them simultaneously. So at that point, how can we create an Angular CLI workspace? So to create an Angular CLI blank workspace, you just need to add this create application false. The create application flag is false, and that will create you a blank workspace. And then later on, you can add applications and libraries into that workspace by using different commands like ng generate application and then ng generate libraries respectively. So this gives you a workspace with multiple projects and libraries, and that can give you all the features that a mono repository has, like interacting with, between multiple projects and keeping all the code under the same place, and developing and maintaining different repositories simultaneously without affecting the other repositories. So one best practice that I would like to tell you when you are working in monorepository kind of structure is don't try to use functions or components of other repositories into some other repositories directly. If you have something that you want to share, you should always do that via libraries. So if you have something that you think should be shared between multiple applications, take that thing out and put it into a library, and then you can share that library between those multiple applications so that it is easy to maintain, and any change into the library doesn't affect all the applications, and it is easy to build and deploy as well. So that is a tip that I can give you. Rob, you can move to the next slide.
Yeah, now we're gonna have Akshay give us a little demo.
Yes. So I'm sharing my screen. Yeah. So I hope my screen is visible to everyone. Just let me know if the font is correct, or should I increase it? Size?
Yeah, it's visible.
So earlier when you try to start like with Angular workspace, the question is how do we create a workspace, like blank workspace? So as Jen mentioned in his on his slide, the previous slide, we can just create a new application, or like we can just create an Angular workspace without any application, and that is basically a workspace. We can do that with ng new whatever your workspace name you want to give, basically the folder name, workspace name, and then we can just say create application as false. That will basically not create the application. That means the app module and all those things won't get created. What will happen on when you hit this command is basically it will create all these files that you can see in this on this at this place. It will just create a package.json, angular.json. As you can see, there is no module or anything. And the Angular.json looks a little different from the ones which we get in a normal Angular project. So here we have a attribute called projects. Once we start adding the projects, it will list down over here. For that, we can add like if we want to get started with it, we need to add a project. So let's just add one. Since it is a demo, I've pre-run it, but the command is ng generate application and whatever the application name is you want to give. Okay, yeah, whatever the app name you would like to. Once you do that, I'll just switch to my other branch. So over here, you will see that this is the difference that will happen. It's like my app. So I have created an application called my app one. Okay, what that does is, it, yeah. By default, the first application that you create is always given as a default. Okay, and over here, all the configuration related to this project is present. Okay, and we can see that there is a project folder also created in the file structure that will contain the source code for the project my app. Inside this, there is app module.ts. I've created two components, view one, view two. We can, like, as per our comfort, however we want to, we can just switch the components. We can create more modules in this. The question comes down to how can we create more modules into a, like if there are multiple projects. I'll show you that also in some time. Yeah, so basically this is like one project. We can create multiple projects. Let me switch to another. Yeah, so over in this one, we have created two projects, my app one and my app two. These are basically two projects. We can see that both of them I have added two components over here as well. Okay, so these are completely separate and can run totally independent of each other, but we club them together because sometimes, okay, if we are working for a bigger organization, they might want a common login functionality. So we can't keep on, creating the login component separately for different projects. For such kind of scenarios, we generally create a library. Okay, I'll just show the library also. So we just generate a library like this, which will have a source code. For that, you just have to hit the command ng generate library. Yeah, and whatever the library name you would like to give. So I've created one mylib one, and how library is different from project, if you ask me. So in the project section, as we saw here, there's a project type. This is highlighted as library instead of application. That means that this certain project is not any application, but it is rather a library. That is, it can't run independently. Like it is not a standalone thing. It needs a project, like it needs to be imported somewhere in the project, and then only it can be used. Okay, I'll switch to one of the. So these are the three things that we have created till now. So if you want to add, like, like once we create multiple projects, the difficult part, like for a beginner, will be when he wants to add only one component to this specific project. For those scenarios, what we can do is we can say ng generate component, let us see. let's say navbar. Okay, navbar. And we can just specify dash project equal to my app one. So this what this variable actually comes from Angular, basically Angular.json. This name, it will try to match it with this, and when I hit enter, it will create it for that project, like specifically inside the source folder. Inside app, we can see that this got installed, and the respective like all the what it's called imports and everything will get resolved to this once we start using it. Like the IntelliSense will automatically get it. Okay, so this was like adding the project, adding a component. We can similarly do it, generate services and other stuff. Okay, I'll try to explain you the Angular.json on this. Yeah, see, this is the difference I was saying. For a project, it will be an application, but for so this is the difference. So for a project, it will be application. For a library, it will be library. There will be root. So where this is based, like where is the root folder of it? This is mentioned over here. Similarly for the application, source root is present, like where the source file is present basically. Prefix, yeah, prefix is something basically when we generate an application, right? So we have this all the components are like the app component. We have this selectors and all. These prefixes are is actually plugged from this prefix. So if I go to lib, the prefix of this comes from this lib that is before the as it comes from this prefix. Okay, and okay, I'll just close this. Okay, I should probably, yeah. So in architect is basically all the commands like ng build, ng serve for the specific project. Here you can place all of them, and whatever the configurations are there for the specific command, you can put it over there. Okay, yeah, you can create your own as well in case if you want to. And yeah, so yeah, there will be one dist folder also, like, yeah, so output path. So basically, this is where you decide how you after build where your project will go to, and this is the app, like this is the folder name. You can change it as for each and every different project as per your need, as per the need of the project. Yes, scripts and everything. So basically, all this is same. This budget, everything is same as it works in normal Angular CLI application. Just the difference will be instead of putting it into the complete Angular CLI, complete Angular JSON, it is put in one of the project, like inside your project, like inside this JSON, basically. Yeah, this is it on the demo part. Yeah. Uh, yeah, so all the links are there in the presentation that will be shared with you soon. After this, okay. And yeah, the configurations, I just mentioned it to you. There's a link for if you want to go to like where the official documentation where we have all the configurations and everything explained. Basically, these whatever I just have like spoken is there in the return note over here. You can view things in detail in that, and there's a YouTube video also that you can check it out. It pretty much explains everything that was discussed right now.
Akshay, can you take the question that Ad has?
Oh, yeah, Jen, can you repeat?
Can you take a question?
Thank you. Let me switch to my screen. Give me a second.
Meanwhile, Akshay, could you answer Edward's, or either of you, could you answer Edward's
I
question?
couldn't get his question. Can you just repeat, please?
Yeah, when you have the angular.json file up for the library, I saw
Yes.
a reference to an ng-package.json file. Can you go into the library directory?
Yeah, sure. Just drop 1 second. I'm just sharing my screen for a second.
All right.
Yeah. You want to go into the file structure?
Into the file structure of the library directory, the
Yeah.
library that you added.
Yes.
Let's see, and open up live. Okay, yeah, I'm not seeing anything there. Can you pull up the angular.json for the maybe I'm seeing things for the library?
Yeah.
The
Can you tell me
angular.json file.
what you're searching for?
The angular.json file.
Angular.json file. Okay, sure. Yeah. Angular.json is here.
And then, okay, hold on, right there.
Yeah.
Right there, the option project.
Yeah.
It references something called ng-package.json.
Yes.
What is that?
It is this one. It is the destination basically. Yeah.
Do we know what that file's for?
Yeah, so basically you have a package.json and you have an ng-package.json into your Angular application. So a package.json is basically a pre-compiled version of your dependencies, and ng-package.json is basically a post-compilation version of those things. So that is the difference between package.json and ng-package.json.
Also, so basically the package JSON, you can use it to build or serve your application. That's where your configuration is at, and also the dependencies that it require for development when you're developing the application. So basically, all your dependencies are stored there, and you can also see that there's a package lock JSON, which locks the package JSON file so that you're not able to add anything else. If you would like to add something else, then you will have to delete the package JSON file, lock file, and then able to install a new library, something else, another dependency for the package JSON file to get updated. Otherwise, you cannot.
I thought I actually think the package locks the version. It doesn't.
Yes, that's correct, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So if you have the package lock file there, you have to delete it in order if you wanted to install something else, because the package lock file needs to get modified, and you won't be able to do that if the package lock file is existing right now. That's
The
all that.
ng
Let's say that
I
you are.
think we don't have to. Yeah, just sorry for interruption. Yeah. So basically, we don't have to like before installing of any of the package.json file, we have something called resolutions. Like basically, all the packages that are there, npm basically looks into the dependencies. And suppose like we are using RxJS, and maybe we might next use ngrx. So these two are dependable. So whichever version the ngrx like our project is comfortable with, like this is like these arrow marks tend to change the version also. Like this over here means 2.3 and above. So if there is a package which needs something like 2.4, like I don't think tslib has to. I think it has. So if tslib 2.4 is available and any other package might need 2.4, in that case instead of 2.3, 2.4 will get added, and the version number will be stored in package log JSON.
Yeah, I understand the package lock.
So you won't see an ng package file if you don't have a library, an Angular library in your app. That one's for building libraries.
Oh, so like if you wanted to package the library and send it to
Yes.
npm.
Yes.
Ah, okay, that makes sense.
Okay, happy to help.
Over to you, Rob.
All right. Can I continue?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So I want to touch on the concept of monorepo. So believe it or not, Monorepos has been in system for about a decade, and it's just started being kind of like popular as of late. So basically, monorepo means one, a single repo that includes multiple repositories in a single Git. I can show you how to convert a polyrepo to a single monorepo, right? So basically, we take the current repos and we merge into a single repository, and we serve that. We store that as a Git repository, as a single one. And do you know that the Angular team also uses monorepos? And the advantages of using monorepos are that you're able to, let's say that you need to update an Angular version from, let's say, from 11 to 12. All your apps are inside the same monorepo, so it's easier for you to update all of them in one shot instead of updating, each polyrepo separate, right? Also, if you have configuration changes, it's easier for you to also make those in a monorepo than to make it in polyrepo, because you will have to open up each instance or each Git of the repo and update that. So here, how do we take a monorepo and be able to use a single node modules? Because that was something that I faced, because I was creating many applications within the same monorepo. So it's pretty easy. Basically, you create new applications. You create as many applications as you need, right? Inside that monorepo. Then you switch to the first one of the applications, right? And then you remove the nodes modules from that applications. Mind you that you already used the ng new client in order for you to create this application. So it created all the dependencies. It created all the package, the correct package JSON file, the Angular JSON file. So when you remove these modules and you take your package JSON and you move it to the root of these new applications, right? You're gonna do that for both, right? And then you're gonna do the same thing again, but you're gonna merge both package modules so that you will get. So let's say that you have one dependency in one of the applications, but you don't have it in the other application. Once you merge these two package JSON files together, you are able to do another npm install. And once you do that, it should create another nodes modules folder, but in the root of where CD multiple apps, it will create it there. And then you'll be able to, whenever you do ng serve in any of the other applications, you'll be using the node modules folder from the actual CD multi apps folder instead of the within each application. So that way, whenever you run any of them, you still have all the dependencies because you merge all the package JSON files together, and then you'll be able to run any of the applications ng serve them. Or you can do ng build, it doesn't matter, because it's going to be using the node modules folder from the root instead of using each individual application's node modules folder. Any questions? I can see the other screen, so if you have questions, you can speak up.
Not yet. I'll let you guys know when there is
All
one.
right. So, what's a polyrepo? As I said before, polyrepo means many, repositories, which includes multiple repositories and each with its own Git, right? A polyrepo can consist of an app with 3 different repos. Let's say a web browser for the UI, a mobile version of the application, or backend and its APIs and databases. So each one is going to get its own Git, and they're all going to be separate. So let's say that you need to change some kind of configuration between the web and the mobile version, then you're going to have to do it inside each of the individual repos, right? So why the preference between monorepo and multi-repo? Well, if Google is using monorepo, I mean, I think it's a great idea if they're using it, because as I said before, if you want to update all your applications from one version to another in Angular, then it's easier to do it in a monorepo. If you need to change some configurations, also it's good to have a monorepo, because you are changing one single set of configurations, right? You're not changing. You don't have to open up each single Git and change a configuration in each application that you have. And if you have many applications, let's say 10 to 15, then it gets kind of cumbersome, right? But that's not to say that monorepos also don't have deficiencies, right? So monorepos, there's no way to restrict access to a particular application, right, in a monorepo, because they all bunch together. In a polyrepo, it's easier to restrict that because you have different Git branches, and you can lock that branch for only certain individuals, right? You cannot do that in a monorepo because they're all together. And another issue with monorepo is that it's has a poor Git performance, right? When working with a lot of applications, because you have to build, and the build time is going to be higher because you building not one single application at a time. You're building many applications at a time. So that's the only issues that I see with monorepos. Any questions? If there are no questions, then I'll give it to Jayant.
All right, guys. So as Rob explained, the multiple advantages that we have of having a mono repository. But let's say there's a use case where you might end up having 2 different repositories. All right. So you have one repository and then you have another repository. You did not think of the MONOREPO architecture, or you might not have attended Rob's presentation. And as you did today, you might have got some inspiration to merge those 2 repositories and put them into the same MONOREPO. So how are you going to do that with the help of Angular Workspaces? So, I mean, the Akshay was able to give you a brief presentation of how you can from scratch build an Angular workspace. But the use case is if you have 2 different applications or 2 different repositories, how do you merge them and put them into the same workspace? So that is something that I'm going to provide a solution for. And for that, what I'm going to do is make use of Git submodules. So what Git submodules does is it allows you to keep a Git repository as a subdirectory of another Git repository. So let's say you have a Git repository and you want to merge another Git repository into this. So you can add that as a subdirectory with the help of Git submodules. I'm going to go in depth over this. And another problem that we might face is as Akshay was presenting the configuration, you might have understood that when you have a workspace, all your applications do not have separate tsconfig.json files. all your application basically extends the root tsconfig.json file, and all your applications have a tsconfig.app.json file, which is extending the root file. So when you merge two different repositories, that is going to be a challenge, because those two different repositories will have separate tsconfig.json file and also separate angular.json files. But when we have Workspace, we have just one single angular.json file, which contains the configuration of all the projects that we have. So these are two challenges that we can face, angular.json and tsconfig.json. But we can solve these challenges only when we are setting up the repository. We have to do these changes only once. But let's say we have package.json as well, and we should have a common package.json when we are merging two different repositories. So how are you going to keep the package.json being updated regularly on every change into the sub-repository as well? Because as I said, when we use Git submodules, we are going to have a different repository, but we are going to add it as a subdirectory into our repository. So all the changes into that repository are only going to come into our repository when we update our repository. But when we update a repository, the package.json of that particular file or that particular repository might update, like there's a new dependency being added to the package.json of that file. So how are we going to manage that? So for that, with every update, we might have to merge these package.jsons accordingly. So what I'm using for that is a command line tool, which you will find in Linux and Mac as well, which is known as JQ. So we have different tools to configure with data, like SAD or other tools, but we don't have tools to configure with JSON, because Linux doesn't understand JSON or Mac doesn't understand JSON. So we have a command line tool known as JQ, which understands JSON, and it can help us merge package.json files every time on every update. So like our sub-repository has a new dependency update. So whenever we pull in the new changes from sub-repository, we are going to merge the package.jsons and add it to the source of the repository so that we don't face any issues. So this is something. Can you move on to the next slide, Rob? So going a little more in depth for how Git submodules work. So this I have explained to you, like Git submodules are basically adding a new repository to as a subdirectory to another Git repository. So this also brings on all the Git history and all the commits that you have into your repository. Because let's say you have two different repositories and you want to make it into one, then you can just copy paste the folders and add it as a subdirectory into your repository and then push it. But you will lose all the commits and all the Git history that you had into that earlier repository. So if you want to save those commits and Git history as well, you can make use of Git submodules. It will bring all the commits and Git histories with it, and it will not you will not lose any of your history that you have with Git. And it will also give you what you're trying to achieve, like adding a repository as a sub repository in a subdirectory. So that can be done as well. So I'm just going to can you change the next slide, Rob? Yeah, so what I'm going to do is, let's see. So let's take a common example. When you have an e-commerce application, all right. So every e-commerce application, you will need an admin side as well. So when you have an admin side and an e-commerce application into two different repositories, just like you can see into the picture, there is an e-commerce application, and then there is another admin side of these things. These are two different repositories, and I want to merge these two different repositories into the same repository. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the e-commerce application as the base repository and the base application, and then I'm going to add another admin side of this admin side repository as a submodule into the projects folder. So when Akshay was presenting how to add multiple applications into the workspace, you must have noted that all the applications that you add goes into the projects folder only. So what I'm going to do is make use of Git submodules to add my admin side repository into the projects folder of my e-commerce repository and then use it. So this is something that I'm going to show. So Rob, let me just share my screen and present.
I'll kick Rob out. Go ahead, Jayant.
All right. Yeah. So, so what I was trying to explain is here basically. So this is my e-commerce application. All right, you can see this, and I also have my admin dashboard application. So when I see, yeah, so this one is my admin dashboard application. All right. So this has some projects, and this is a separate project, and this one is a separate project. Now I want to add my admin dashboard to my admin dashboard project to my e-commerce application. So how am I going to do that? So for that, I have these commands over here of how to make use of Git submodules. So I've added to the README file of my repository. So what I can do is take this command from here and so add it here. Let me just zoom in a little. Yeah. So if you see, this command says get submodule add, and then we have to define the name of the repository, whatever name we want to give it to, and then the link of the repository. So if it is a public repository, you can give the link here, and even if it is a private repository, you can add the SSH at a place and configure it. Also, you can provide the directory in which you want to add the submodule. So when I say git submodule add with this name and this directory, this is going to make use of this link that I'm providing, the GitHub link, and it is going to fetch my repository and add it as a submodule into this directory. So when I run this command, so this is going to add my repository here. So I have already done that into this another branch. So when you see this is going to add this over here, but you are not able to see the contents of this repository as of now. So for that, what you have to do is you have to actually update the repository. So for that, I have actually created a shell script. So that shell script looks something like this. So how do you update the repository? You are basically going to init. First of all, you are going to init all the repositories or the submodules that you have into your repository, and then you are going to add this recursive flag so that it is recursively going to check if there are any other repositories, and then it is going to fetch it and it is going to update. So and these are the two commands. And even if you have a remote repository and you want to fetch and merge both at the same time, then you can add this remote flag as well with this. So the command is git submodule update, and then you can add these recursive init and remote flag to it, and then it is going to fetch all the changes into your repository and add it. And the last thing that I'm using here is basically the JQ command that I was talking about to merge the package.json. So as every time you update the repository or fetch some updates from your repository, what you are going to do is make use of this JQ command. This JQ command takes in two arguments, 0 and 1, and it is going to merge those things. So how it is going to do that is basically I'm going to provide the first package.json to it, that is my admin's package.json, and I'm going to provide my root package.json, that is my e-commerce as package.json, and it is going to merge those package.json and create a separate new package.json. And then I'm trying to copy this package.json into the root package.json using the cp command, copy command, and then I'm going to remove the temporary package.json that I created. So why I have to create a temporary package.json? Because if I'm simultaneously making use of the JQ command to merge these two package.json, it is going to update my root package.json and I'm going to lose some dependencies. So I don't want to change this root package.json till the time I'm having the final configuration. So what I'm going to do is create a separate temporary package2.json, then copy that. When it is done, I'm going to copy that content into the root package.json and remove the temporary package.json that I've created. So this is what this basic shell script is doing. So if I have to run this shell script, I need to make this executable. That is something that you guys might have already be aware of. And then if I have to run it, I just do / and the name of the shell script, and then I run it. So as soon as I do that, I'm going to see all the contents of my admin dashboard repository into this. So this is going to have all the contents that I had. And this will bring with itself all the history and all the Git logs that you had earlier with it. So this is how we do, we add a new repository. And after this, we have also merged the package.json. So what I can tell you right now is this repository, my admin dashboard repository, in its package.json, it was having basically these dependencies. I added a dependency of ng2 charts. So you can see that in my new merged package.json, you will find ng2 charts as well right here, because we just merged it using the JQ command. So if you have some dependencies into your root repository, like I had Angular material and Angular CDK into my root repository, but not into my sub repository. And I had ng charts and chart.js into my sub repository, but not into my root repository. So using the JQ command, I merged both of these dependencies and added it into the same file in the root repository. So now at this point, I'm going to have just one single node modules folder, which will contain all my modules of all the projects that I have into this repository. So this is what I was trying to achieve. And after that, you can also have a use case, like you want to on some different route of your source repository, you want to check the repository that you were thinking of, the admin dashboard repository into some route of my source repository. So for that, I have basically what I have done is into the routing file. Into the routing file, I have imported my my admin dashboard repository on the admin route, and it is going to fetch it in a lazy way and then use it. So if I go to the /admin route, I'm going to see my repository that I just added here. So that is what I have added here. And for this, what I had to do was I had to make this admin dashboard as an exported new module. So in this module, what I had to do was I had to add it here as a shared module, and then people were going to use it. So I'm just going to show that to you.
Okay, just a real quick time check that we have 4 minutes left.
Yeah. I'll keep that in mind. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, these are the major changes that you had to do, and also you might have to change the angular.json and tsconfig.json files at the end so that you can make use of it, and just direct everything that you had into these files to the sub repository that you have, so that you can have all the configuration that you need. So in these files, I had to add another project, which is my admin dashboard project, and it will reference to projects./admin dashboard, which I had into my repository. So I'll just drop in chat the links of my repositories so that you can just go through it and clear all the doubts you might have regarding the configuration and everything else.
All
Wait,
right.
was that the end of the presentation?
Yes, that
I
was
missed the
the
thank you
end.
slide.
Can you see my slide?
Nope, because you weren't switching, so I had to
Oh,
kick
okay.
you out. As you do that, I just want to, because a lot of you all joined after Rob had started presenting, just want to thank you again, everyone, for joining. My name is Ankita. I'm the host. I'm sure some of you are new. I'm the host of this channel, and we meet every other Wednesday. At least we try to meet every other Wednesday at this time. So if you would like to present something, just like these three guys did, feel free to message me and we can set up that for you. It is always encouraged, even if you're a first-time speaker. And I'm just, wait, Rob, go ahead and finish your presentation first.
No, we just want to thank you
I was
for
just making
listening.
use of time, dude. There's like only 2 minutes left.
Thank you for listening and asking questions. It was our pleasure to present this topic to you. Hope that you found it useful and knowledgeable. And thank you, Akshay and Jayant, as well for presenting.
Sure. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, you guys did a great job with all the examples and the shell scripts that you had handy. You explained it really well. The only thing that personally I would say is Rob mentioned that the build times could be higher, but if you are smart with your pipelines, you could have your multiple apps build separately. It depends on what platform you're using to build your app, but they would like GitLab, for instance, would allow you to have multiple parallel pipelines. So you could build your apps parallelly and you can choose to build the only app that you want to build, and you
Yes,
don't have to build multiple apps at the same
you can
time.
do that
So
with Jenkins. Jenkins can pinpoint a single application to build. It doesn't
right,
have to
so
build the
like
entire
yeah, it
repo.
depends on what you're using, but I'm sure every platform has a configuration. So like
Yeah.
monorepos are great, and no matter which tool you use to organize your monorepos, there's a lot of hesitancy in going that direction, and I'm glad you guys shined its advantages and with all the great demos that you had. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
this presentation.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, and for everyone else, do you want to practice your talk on us? Or if you already have a talk that you have it prepared and want to give us, we would welcome that very much. It's a friendly community, as you might experience if you stick with us. I encourage you all to join next time. Until then, happy Wednesday,
Thank you.
morning, or evening, afternoon, whatever. Yeah, and reach out to these guys with all of your questions. Okay, until next time. Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye.
That's it.